Ready?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yes.
Hello and welcome everyone to session two. Um, Apologies for the technical difficulties in the first session, but once we got it sorted, it was great. I'm Kate Sicchio. I'm going to be moderating this session. Um, Same format. Everyone has approximately 5 minutes to present, 5 minutes for questions, or some 10-minute allotment. Um, Those out there in YouTube, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll get them to our panelists. And then at the end, we'll also have 15 minutes for everyone to have a discussion. So I'm going to let our first speaker, Randall, take it away.
Okay. Hello. Nice to meet you all. My name is Randall Sands, and I'm going to be talking about some connections or experiments between illustration or drawing and um, live coding. Something kind of related to the last question of the first panel about things that we want to see or connect. Um, So I started life coding since 2019, and then the pandemic began. So I went deep into the thing, and then I started as I got more into life coding and doing music and visuals. I started also trying to experiment with other ways to connect some of my like I don't know more manual things related to my artwork. So I've been doing um, illustration for even more years, and you can actually look me up as a Smuskus board um, on Instagram or stuff like that. And I'm going to be showing you some experiments that I have done that kind of um, go into a direction in which I am integrating drawing, illustration, code, and also transformation of data coming from the images to sound or even more visuals. So yes, so I'm going to start over here. I'm going to do this. Okay, so I have to share a tab each time. So okay, I'll be going sharing and unsharing stuff from time to time. So um, okay, so on the pandemic, I started um, doing some projects in which I integrated um, like I started I don't know how to say like obsessing with the real time collaborative like thing in which you connect with a person that is on another part of the world um, and do stuff together. So this, for example, is some video register of a project that we started working. I started working with Flor de Fuego, Flor de Fuego that you guys may know, Argentinian life coder that also works a lot with Hydra. Um, and we were doing this thing in which we wanted to be able to draw collaboratively and also use Hydra at the same time using P5 Live. I don't know if you guys know you all know the platform, but yeah, these are some kind of experiments based on what the platform lets you do, and also having all the things of doing it real time uh, with small things that can happen. So yeah, so this is first thing that I would like to show that goes on that side. I also would like to be able to integrate a more complex thing like um, well, I already forgot the name of the platform, but I can send it later on Zoom. That can let you like do some more complex stuff like collaboratively, and integrate it with stuff like Hydra and other things. So then moving on to the sound area, I started also working with transforming um, my my drawings, for example. Well, I don't know if it's actually moving, but here I started like transforming some of my drawings that you can see over here, like this kind of like this tile I do, and I started transforming them using a tool called Pixel Synth. Um, that was developed um, but by OJack, by Olivia Jack, where you can like transform any um, image a into a into a sound. Um, so then I started like going back again and doing some layers also. And for example, I ended up um, over here. I ended up like adding again another layer of code in terms of visuals, where we could like connect this sound into some other audio reactive thing, and also modify it like some in some ways. And then I said, okay, let's go into another stage in which we can actually like connect this, like I don't know, for example, to Orca. Um, let's say it's 100rabbits. Orca. That it's an esoteric language that maybe you know, and connect this to this, for example, to PixelSynth. So then I started like doing like kind of like some experiments with I don't know, like um, something inspired by Pixel Synth that I called Pixel Synth 3000, in which I'm able to do not just images but also like a webcam, um, and be able to get it into sound and also like accept MIDI that will be able to like select like the bass note, the octave, and yeah, at the moment, and stuff like that. So yeah, and then I would later on would like to even integrate like Hydra inside of this. That I actually think the version 2 of Pixel Thin is able to. I mean, it's not documented or fully out, but I was just playing around with the console, and then I just found out it's able. So, um, yeah, stuff like that. Let's see. Let me just show over here. Um, let's see. I don't know if how am I there with the time. This is going to be the last thing. Oh, this is the Pixel Synth version 2. And I said, does it actually have Hydra? And then it does. But it's not like out yet. So there this goes. So it's like a way in which we can connect like visual, sound, and illustration and stuff like that. But yeah, that'll be it. Thank you very much.
Amazing, thank you. I think I'm gonna squeeze in one question because it's burning for me. I'm really interested in this. Like, if for you there's a point where like the drawing becomes a notation for the sound. Um, yeah, if there's any response to that, the idea of notation in drawing.
Yeah, it totally. But also like ways in which I mean, well, first it can determine like certain like movement or yeah sound or scenario, and also how then we can also like adapt certain like that same drawing into malleate it into something else, right? Um, so yeah, that's something that I'm really yeah I've been doing, and I also like you can explore my Instagram, which I have other experiments in which I get that, and yeah, for sure that's the thing. And already you know like years way back I saw those like avant-garde notations that were just like kind of like drawings, and I said okay, we can make it even more complex. So yeah, it goes over here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is beautiful work. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. Um, and we'll have you back at the end for more questions as well.
Sure.
And now we'll move on to Jessica. I'll let you take it away.
Sweet, sweet. See if, oh my gosh. Okay, excellent. Can you guys all see this? Okay.
Yes.
Sweet, sweet. Okay, great. So I want to talk about live coding vector graphics in weird dimensions. I am Jessica. I also go by this X or that. This or that is what I say on the internet. I used to hang out, or my home live code group was Live Code NYC, and then right now I'm living in Cambridge at the MIT, not living at MIT Media Lab, but yes, here. um, sweet, sweet. Yeah. So I live code visuals, and through visuals, like the way that I usually think of it is that you have your kind of your vector graphics, like you're drawing a shape, and then I apply a lot of post processing on top of it that I also live code, and then I also take those shapes and repeat them and manipulate them in certain places that I also live code. But I want just the shapes. Yeah, and then so this is how I usually live code is I have this YAML file that I'm typing in expressions, and when I say weird dimensions, I want to figure out more like things to kind of change, more dials to adjust. And I think with things like audio and visual synthesizers, there actually are like physical like metaphors you can, or like physical like similar things you can use draw from. But with drawing vector graphics, it gets a little bit, I found it a little bit trickier. Like maybe you can think of like Inkscape or Adobe Illustrator, they have like a certain set of commands that you're always using and stuff, but how do you translate that into live coding? So I went a completely different direction for this one. Uh, this is Marshall. Marshall is a seagull that my parents sent me a picture of one day, and I was so inspired. I was like, I want to live code this. So I turned Marshall into this, and I actually like used this in my very first live code performance, like a couple of years ago. I got to sneak in Marshall, and so I want to talk about how I did this, and because I think the technique, like it's like one of the useful techniques for breaking up vector graphics and stuff. So first of all, you start with a sketch of uh, you convert the image into a drawing. So this part is kind of like a manual step done. Uh, and the technique that I'm using is using Fourier transforms. So to start with though, like let's take some text like hello. And we're gonna have three different functions we're gonna end up learning. One is whether the pen is up or down. One is the X location and one is the Y location. So then if you kind of follow along that path, you just have these functions you need to learn. So then you can do some math to it, and like it's only a couple of lines of code, which is cool. Or like this is the way of like reconstructing things. I use the ones with sines and cosines because the Euler form still kind of scares me, but I should come to terms with it. Yeah, and then so what I think is really cool about doing something this way is that you have like this function that you can then like jab in parameters. So like you can what I'm doing here is that I'm changing the number of what n is. Like I'm chopping off like the higher frequencies and stuff, and just kind of bouncing back and forth between the number of different things that I'm including. Uh, and I think one thing that's cool with this too is that like you can kind of sense like what the underlying thing is. Like it becomes like a circle-ish shape because it is based off of like sines and cosines. And then I'm not going to go over this, but this is like what it takes to actually like learn those parameters from like a series of points that draw something out. So it also isn't too much code, and I've actually done it in like real time too. Uh, yeah. So what's cool about this is that then you can go into your functions and you can start to like adjust them in different ways. Uh, so this one is I think I'm like offsetting the phase inside of the sine functions, if a sine and cosine, and then I'm choosing which term to do that to. And so then you get like different transformations on the left. And then on the right is another seagull, but like transformed over time and looks cool and like a nice visuals and stuff. Yeah, so I aimed for 5 minutes and I think I hit the 5 minutes, so there's lots of time for questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah. I can kick off with a first question, and then anyone who wants to in the YouTube chat can join in. I guess my first question is about when you're doing these transformations, um, do you get what you expect, or is it just full of surprises?
Yeah, I think it's full of surprises and it's like a like exploration and stuff, and you like sit down in a quiet room and like start to adjust things, or you're live doing a show and you're like, oh, I'm bored, I'm gonna try changing some things. And then sometimes it turns out great and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Uh,
And what parameters give you like um something that's interesting, and what parameters give you something that's boring?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think like so one thing at like a bigger level too is that like uh this is like one way of parameterizing things, but I like feel like I keep on trying to explore new ways to represent. Like I actually don't use this one super often, but the one that I do use is like kind of annoying to work with too, where I just like draw arcs and lines. And so I'm like constructing the shape and then kind of squeezing different things together and stuff. Um, yeah, so I think I'm still on the journey of figuring out good parameters, and maybe there's no end to the journey.
Yeah, there's a question in the YouTube chat. It says, have you tried less straightforward ways of interpolating between the coefficients? Like
Yeah,
going
mm,
outside of the linear interpolation could yield interesting results.
right. That's a good question. So like one of the things like I'm thinking like by representing it in this way, I'm already making it in a weird parameter space, because like the other times I've done this, I've done like neural networks. So you do like an autoencoder and then you have kind of a like a linear the neural network linear ways of making it back. And so like one thing that I think is cool with this is like because even if you do linear stuff, you'll end up with some wiggly things in there. But yeah, definitely like exploring other ways of interpolation would be fantastic.
Yeah. And then I guess maybe one last question from me. Yeah, how was Marshall received? Is he now like a live code icon?
Oh, I should use them more often. Um, I have there's a few big fans. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. Anything else in YouTube land? Great. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, Jessica, and hang around because we'll do a panel discussion at the end. And yeah, we'll get ready for Eric to be up next.
Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Great to be here. I am Eric Milliken. I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence, AI, animation. So AI animation, right? Live coded loops, animated loops, and past, present, and future. I am in Estuary right now. Thank you, David Ogborn. Um, and I'm going to show you, for example, I'm going to show you how to make an animated loop like this one. I'm going to show some super fast, super introductory animation skills here with a website. It's hosted on Hugging Face. It's called Diffuse the Rest. Um, I Thanks to Marshall, I thought ornithology would be a great theme for today. So we're going to work birds and everything here. Here's Diffuse the Rest. What this gives you is some, it's a AI drawing tool based on stable diffusion. What it gives you the ability to, it gives you some rudimentary drawing skills here where you get to choose your brushes, you get to choose your colors. I drew this raven or crow here on the left, and then you get to type in a prompt. So I said Raven, and I said Eric Milliken. This is based on stable diffusion, which is trained on a number of artist works, and I am one of them. So I asked this to take this drawing that I made, knowing that that's supposed to be a raven, and I'm Eric Milliken, and it gave me a nice signature on there. It will then create, and some of these are super abstract, create 4 of these for you. You can then, based on any one of these, you can ask it to make more, but then you can download a whole series of them, and that is what I don't know, show people to do to make very fast, very easy AI animations like this one. Um, this is, for example, this loop here that I made, and this might not be the most easy thing to tell here. We'll see. Um, That is a synchronous loop. It is timed to the default beats per minute here in Estuary. Here's another one. This will be an asynchronous loop, and I'll throw my beat back on this. And that being an asynchronous loop, of course, like the hand clap will slap me in the face on certain times, and it'll slap my dinosaur in the face and some other ones. This is a synchronous loop, and so this one should line up with the beat perfectly. Oops, not Sinistero. Mini title should line up with the beat perfectly every time. So we always get a hand clap on a dinosaur, and we get a nice cymbal hit on my face. This is created with a custom system for AI visuals that I've made. It is trained on pictures of myself, as well as early 20th century horror films, particularly ones with artificial life forms or reanimated creatures, like the Lost World for dinosaurs, and the German Golem films, and Thomas Edison's Frankenstein and things like that. These are animated GIFs, which is a somewhat old school animation format going back to the 1980s. But I'm also going to go to a fairly super old school animation format here, which is going to be the phenakistoscope. I'm going to show you one of these, and I put that word in there so that if you need to spell that, you can. I think I'm being told it's spelled wrong. I think there's multiple spellings of that. But this is a phenakistoscope. This is from the 1890s. This is one made by Edward Muybridge. It's sort of like a flip book, but instead of flipping the pages, you spin it. So it's in a circle. It is actually it's intended to you to look at the back of it and look through the slits here and see it reflected in a mirror, sort of like a pinwheel, but you look through slits, sort of like a zoetrope. And so this should be me rotating it at the correct speed to get you a nice phenakistoscope effect. And I spent quite a bit of time doing the math to figure out what that speed was. And so here's my secret code for that, which is I take the frames per second, divide it by the number of frames. That's the number of images around the circle, and multiply that by 720. And I'll point out here that I have switched to 15 frames per second here in Estuary in order to get this to be even cooler, make it work. But that's the secret formula for that. I have then using AI to create my own phenakistoscope, several of them. Oops, mage, I'm going for magic there, image. So for example, this is one of my phenakistoscope circles that I've made. Here it is rotated, and again, I'm using math to figure out that I need to rotate that 77,000 times over 100 cycles. And then I can also throw, besides the phenakistoscope animation on this, I'm going to throw some Cinecero animation on this as well, so I can slowly zoom in and out on this. And so that's a one animation on a single phenakistoscope. And then, of course, I'm getting into how can I complicate that and make that even stranger. And so this is one that's got three levels on it. Each of them is sort of set to rotate at a different speed. And so for like right now, we hopefully are seeing my face there sort of on the second level, fairly static in position, but animated. And then the circle on the outside is going to be rotating clockwise, and then the serpent in the middle counterclockwise. I can also change the speed, and so now the outer circle should be fairly still, and the circles on the inside moving counterclockwise at different speeds. And then I can do my zooming in on this. I can zoom in on different portions of it. Or even the middle of it, I suppose. Let you check out my Ouroboros here. And I will slowly take those off. And I'm not a clock watcher, but I hopefully have done fairly well on time.
Yes, thank you so much. I think we have time for me to ask a question. So yeah, it's really fascinating actually to see kind of like the history of animation in this presentation.
Oh, yep.
So we have like yeah, from the
Yeah, so it's a pre-film, physical
pre-film,
animation. Yep.
yeah, all the way to stable diffusion.
Yep.
Um, and I guess like what's interesting is like you showed like a lot of ways live code can interact with this. Like technically, like you can sync it to the sound, you can do these zooming sort of things. Um, but I think more conceptually, something you said was, well, I'm gonna make it more complicated and more stranger. So I wonder like how does live code allow you like more on a conceptual level to make things strange?
Um, yeah, and more complex and stranger. They sometimes tend to go together because like often I'll use I showed an animated GIF. What I did not show was an animated GIF that was animated in Estuary. And so, of course, like you take that animated GIF, sort of like I was zooming in on the phenakistoscope, so you can zoom in and out on that, move it around in space and things like that. And so, as soon as you get, three or four animated GIFs going at the same time at different speeds and doing their own, you know, XY positioning and moving them in infinite loops and things like that. I'm doing infinity symbols for my infinite loop here. Then it starts to get super strange and interesting. And then yeah, you start. And this is what in the live improvisational part of it, and then starting to fade from one thing to the next and then leaving them in various states of transparency. And so you've got these ghostly animated GIFs from different eras of history on top of each other. And so you've got these, reanimated fossil dinosaurs along with your golems from German expressionist films and things like that. And that's where it gets, for me, dreamy and wonderful.
Fantastic. Great. Yeah. There's some
Yeah, thank
people in
you.
the YouTube chat just saying amazing.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you, Eric. And yeah, we'll chat some more in a minute. Yeah, and our last presenter of this session will be David Osborne.
Great, thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. Really enjoyed this morning's presentations, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's as well. It's great to experience all the wonderful and creative ideas that people are activating. And a special thanks also to Kate and Kofi and Melody for organizing such a warm and welcoming space. So today I'm going to talk to you about some experiments I have been doing using the punctual live coding language in close conjunction with modular synthesizers. Over the last year or so, I've been taking the chance to completely rewrite Punctual from the ground up. Punctual started as a side project, a kind of personal side project alongside the much larger Estuary project. And as a side project, I never really had the time to think properly about how I wanted it to work. But I've taken the last year to really go back to first principles and think about how I wanted Punctual to work. And I'm quite happy with some of the ways, some of the places that it's going. And recently, I'm kind of at the end of that rewrite, and so recently I've been activating this possibility of using it in conjunction with modular synthesizers. And I guess there's a couple of reasons for that off the top of my head. The two that the two that are most emphatic to me, I guess, are one, the fact that Punctual as a language is already a little bit in the space of modular synthesis. It's a language where you've got simple modules and you're kind of making connections between them, and then hearing and seeing the results. And then also, I think I'm really interested in exploring the possibilities to have spaces where more people collaboratively can get their hands on the strange synthesis assemblage that we form in an improvised live coding session. And so I see modular synthesis in conjunction with Punctual as a way of just making it possible for more people to get their hands on the thing that we're making together at the same time. But that said, I'm just going to play with it today myself because, baby steps. So I thought next what I would do is show you a little bit what the setup I have is here. So I'm going to move the webcam. So over here I have a modular synthesizer, and here's my computer. And in between the modular synthesizer and the computer, I have this Motu audio interface. And one of the things that's really nice about the Motu audio interfaces is that the audio inputs and outputs are DC coupled, which means that you can send very low frequency signals out those outputs, or very low frequency signals can come in those inputs, and they're still going to work. They're not inputs and outputs that expect the signals to be oscillating all the time in the audio spectrum. So there's two cables coming out of the back of that interface going into the inputs, where I've got a little scope on the modular synthesizer, and then I've got cables running from that scope to a couple of inputs of this Döpfer A1116 miniature synthesizer voice, and then the output of that is going to a frequency shifter, and then there's a low-pass filter and a mixer, and that's it. So that's my setup, and what I'm going to do now is just play with it for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to share my screen and start working in Estuary. So I hope people can see that. So I'm going to start by making an LFO. Let's just make a nice slow sine wave. And I'm going to visualize the sine wave on the screen with a circle. Okay, there's my moving circle. Let's add a little bit of feedback. Okay. And now what I want to do is make this work with the modular synthesizer. And so among the many, many changes that have happened in Punctual over the last year, one of the last has been much better support for directing audio output to specific channels. And so, I can use this in my setup here to use some higher numbered channels of the audio output system to go straight to the modular synthesizer, while other channels are still going to whatever system I'm using to listen to the results are. And so I'll just do that. I'm going to go out the 7th channel. And I'm going to turn my mic down and play for a minute or two here. So there you have it. Just getting started playing with this, but having fun already.
Great. Thank you so much. I guess one quick question I have is, yeah, about the playing. Yeah, so like, because you've worked with Punctual so long as strictly a text interface, how does it, yeah, feel to be tactile with it?
It feels good. Yeah. Yeah, and I've always been interested in notations where more graphical and um, parametric things that you move around happen on the screen, and I'm still interested in that. In the modular synthesis, in some ways, it feels like a shortcut that opens up other things. It's like you don't have to try to do this stuff on the screen because there's all this rich stuff to do with it in the world that's just kind of at hand. Um, this is not really an answer to your question, but I suppose the question makes me think about this side of things, like going back and forth between the screen and the modular synthesizer relatively rapidly becomes natural, and you but it also makes you conscious of the differences between these different ways of computing things. And one thing that I find really kind of like exciting to think about, but also kind of challenging, is about the non-reproducibility of the modular synthesis stuff. Like when we do something in Punctual on the screen, there's this wonderful reproducibility of it. Like it can happen on however many computers are logged into that Estria ensemble, they should pretty much experience the same thing. But the moment I'm using something like this modular synthesis stuff, it's like, no, it all absolutely depends on this specific thing that is only happening here at this one point in the world, and there isn't really any way of recreating it. So, because in general, I'm like really interested in making things that make it possible for people to share common experiences across different kinds of differences, including just plain old spatial difference. That's kind of a challenge, but fun to think about still.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, I'm going to invite the other speakers from this session to come back, turn on your cameras. Um, yeah, what a great journey this has been through all things audio and visual today. Yeah, maybe, yeah. We can talk, yeah, maybe like just as a sort of question for everyone, oh, wait a second, maybe Randall will join us. Hopefully they'll join while we keep talking. Yeah, but yeah, what kind of relationships are you hoping to uncover with the audio and visual through live coding? I guess is maybe where I'll start. If anyone wants to take it away.
I'll say this, and I said I was working in estuary. I can real quickly say one of the reasons why I've been working with that more than maybe I did a few years ago, and because you just use the word relationship between audio and visual. One of the reasons I'm working with estuary is because it is able to be shared globally across the internet, and so the ability to quickly form relationships with people around the world around live coding. And because I do both sound and visuals, it's really good for me to be able to say, "Hey, I'll do that" with somebody who's remote to me. So yeah, that's the type of relationship I thought of fairly quickly.
I can drop in a tiny one for me too, because like I think the techniques that I'm using are like more often used with audio too. So I also just like being able to be like, oh haha, like these things are picking up things from the other domain and bringing it over.
Yeah, and I guess building on what Eric and Jessica are saying, I'm really interested in helping to create situations where professional boundaries fall down or weaken or soften to some extent. So, like, I think I never had lots of visual training growing up, but working on Punctual, I've like constantly wandered further and further into like visual ways of thinking, and that I see around me, people like wandering those paths in different directions as well. So, like, I think, if the more we get to a place where in sort of professional and amateur and whatever you want to call it, community art settings where people are not identifying themselves, primarily as visualists or musicians, but sort of embracing the multimedia landscape as an identity and a form of play without needing to kind of like draw those more exclusive lines. That's always really exciting to me, and I do see these kind of like when you go in and you make these hybrid situations and you embrace them and you try to push them really far. I think that hopefully that is making the path a little bit wider for other people to do that as well, breaking down professional boundaries basically.
Yeah, Randall.
Yeah, I think maybe what I kind of been pursuing with all this is like this concept of like synesthesia, like this interconnection of the senses, and also like what you all been saying, and that is kind of the thing that moves me. And um, I'm really seeing, and also like what David said, like actually being able to like blur the lines. And I think a lot of what live coding, in terms of like the philosophy that merges or permeates what we do, tries to do is like kind of blur some lines in which we put categories or boxes and things, and then like, yeah, like this code lets us have more like kind of control into like how to create stuff that was not um, able, that we were not able like some years ago, or stuff like that, and doing it in ways that we can connect as Eric, like from different parts of the world, and doing it in a way that we can share. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. There was a question in the chat earlier that I want to get to for Eric specifically. It says, have you faced any computational limitations using AI in the context of live coding performance?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of in the context of a live coding performance, but there are definitely a ton of limitations to AI. Let me put it that way. And where I often get more interested in AI is where I can find where some limitation is, and then I can try to create my own system to make up for the limits that are in a lot of the commonly known systems. And then I'm going to get off into like super niche interests here. One of the things I'm interested in is Gothic romance novel covers of the 1960s and 1970s. And you're probably going to be surprised to hear that most commercial AI systems cannot draw them very well, right? They're not trained to do that, right? And so then I get excited and I go like, I'm going to make the system that does that, right? And so that's where I get, so like finding those limitations, because they're made for people today who are interested in very mainstream sort of things. Among the things that I talk about when I show or when I talk broadly about AI is talk about algorithmic bias, and I show these systems that do nothing but create. You ask for a man and you get nothing but white men, uh, looking like they're dressed for the red carpet or something like that. And so then when you find those limits, you go, hey, what if I can? And this is where I get into early 20th century film, and what if all my people were based on golems and Frankensteins and the dreams and these sort of cultural dreams that we have over a long period of time. So in an AI live code limitation, and I'll say like this is one of the reasons why I get to like animated GIFs really quickly, is you can put anything in an animated GIF, right? So you can put stop motion in there, you can put AI in there, you can put video in there, whatever. And so that's animated GIF is a way to remove a whole bunch of limitations for me. So
Yeah. Live code your gifts.
There you go.
And then there's a question from Kofi for everyone. He says, there is this relationscape with AV, as asked by Kate. If you had to or could incorporate one other sense into your process or workflow, what would you add or explore? So I'm assuming sense as in like taste, touch, yeah, proprioception maybe. What other sense would you put into this workflow? Smell. Can you live code a AI smell?
Yeah, I'm gonna the thing that first comes to mind is I work with electronics and motors and robotics and things like that, and among the things that I do with them is sometimes I use them as like to create sort of shadow puppets in my video projections and things like that. But you working with those physical things, that's a sense of touch for me. This sort of question makes me wonder whether other people could get to touch them too during a performance. But that's the first thing I thought of, and then of course I then go to Kate and like, how can I live code smells and things like that. So next year, how about that?
Maybe less on the how you uh the senses too, but like I can use parameters for mine. So for kind of anything. So like I've hooked up like heart rate monitors and my exercise bike and like other things. So it's like other ways of getting numbers out of yourself than just twisting things.
Yeah, bodily parameters.
And it's like fun because or it's interesting because you're like, oh, I have to like jump up and down a lot, and then I feel different because I just jumped up and down a lot and I'm like performing, but uh,
Mhm.
got the numbers to change.
It's like the triathlon of live coding.
Yeah, I guess on a similar note, for me, it's movement, not necessarily in a dancey way, but just, I imagine there not being one modular synthesizer, but many of them distributed around the room with very long cables. And, you actually have to like navigate the room. You and a group of people navigate the room to make the connections, and they're big and they're tangible and they're in the room with you, and it gets you up out of the seat, or not locked in one place anymore. That feels like the future for me, and it feels very achievable too. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's you like working on another system for live coding over distance, but you actually have to physically traverse the distance. I love that.
I guess I mean I am kind of like so like Estuary really has been strongly stamped by this idea of like remote collaboration, and as a result there are all these like weird challenges and questions that do come up when you try to use it in these hybrid ways with everyone in the same room. um, but I do imagine kind of like bridging that gap somehow, and like basically I think the long and short of it is putting little systems into Estuary that make it easier to turn off certain kinds of specific results on specific machines. So you can kind of make this weird assemblage that's in one Estuary ensemble, but it gets rendered in different ways in different parts of the room.
Great. Yeah. Randall, do you have a response to that question?
Well, I don't know. It's the like I'm trying to visualize like how to integrate, I don't know, like either smell or taste, because they're very like connected. But for me, integrating those senses might feel a little problematic, but kind of I would go with the movement as well. And I think actually movement would be like the next thing to actually like integrate there. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's like a massive connection between drawing and movement, and yeah, so I see that, yeah, really clearly as yeah, the next step in your in your live coding work. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, gesture. Yeah, great. Um, well, I guess if there's no more burning questions, I don't see any more in the chat. We can end there for today. Jessica already had to leave us, so thank you to her. And then, yeah, thank you to all of our presenters in this session. This was great. Yeah, it's just fascinating to see what everyone's doing and yeah, where it intersects with each other. So we'll be back tomorrow for the last two sessions. We did have to combine, we had three planned, we had to combine due to people no longer being available. But we'll start tomorrow again at 9 a.m. And hopefully all will go well with that early YouTube stream. And yeah, thank you again to everyone for joining us today. Yeah, round of applause. Yeah.